Good day, my name is Nicola Edwards, and this is my research proposal for COMS 3902. The title of this research is An Investigation into the Community-Level Causes of Recidivism in Trinidad. This presentation will outline my plans for conducting the research, establish the core issues at hand, and provide a theoretical background for a further understanding of the topic. Recidivism, as defined by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, refers to criminal acts that resulted in the rearrest, reconviction, or return to prison with or without a new sentence during a 3-year period following the prisoner's release. As a communication studies student at the University of the West Indies, I have chosen to undergo research on this topic because I believe that a well-functioning society is dependent on healthy and conductive interactions between all of its members. Researcher Ashley Quinn-Hogan looked at the lasting impact of stigmatization where formerly incarcerated persons are concerned, stating that individuals who have been convicted of a crime are typically unable to return to a normal society without the shadow of their past deeds following them. According to Quinn-Hogan, these persons are often outcast by the rest of their community, including by family and friends. This treatment often manifests in being left out of social events in the neighborhood or by their presence in general areas such as grocery stores or public parks being met with disdain by the and unwelcoming attitudes. Other persons in the community express reluctance and hesitation when interacting with them as they do not want to be involved with a criminal in any way, and sometimes they even fear being around them. According to a study conducted by researchers Mavis Dekogeke and Frank Ruffo, this makes it difficult for previously incarcerated individuals to form lasting, meaningful relationships post-incarceration, either on a personal or professional level. As a result, these individuals experience difficulty when getting a job due to employers not wanting to hire someone with a criminal record, and so they are seen as being lazy and unproductive. Researcher Tracy Bass addressed the cyclical function of recidivism in most communities, as previously incarcerated persons are rarely given the opportunity to mend their tarnished reputations. Bass states that this continuous treatment leads to a breakdown in their mental health, which makes these individuals more susceptible to the lure of an easier life, or returning to criminal activities as a means of getting by. The objective of this study will be to uncover the barriers preventing incarcerated persons from successfully reintegrating into a normal society, and subsequently to find ways to reduce the chances of them returning to a life of crime. The study will focus on 3 research questions. Firstly, does labeling a person as a deviant or a criminal affect their self-perception and cause them to behave in a way that aligns with their label? Secondly, does exposure to a particular environment encourage criminal behavior? Thirdly, does a lack of societal bonds make reintegration into society difficult for individuals who have been incarcerated? There have been several theories as to the causes of high recidivism rates at the community level, but this research will draw on only 3. Firstly, the labeling theory by Howard Becker in conjunction with John Berkowitz's reintegrative shaming theory, Edwin Sutherland's theory of environmental exposure, and Travis Hershey's theory of social learning. Initially developed in the 1960s, the labeling theory interrogates the terminology used to describe and classify individuals and the influence this terminology has over their self-identity and subsequent behavior. Howard Becker, in 1963, published his support of this theory by expounding on the definition of the word deviant, stating that it can only refer to a person to whom the label has been successfully applied. He further goes on to outline the stages in which a person's master status, or their primary identifying characteristic, is transformed from being normal to being criminal. He states that after a deviant act takes place, the individual is publicly labeled and stigmatized as deviant and criminal. This initial rejection from society forces a change in the individual's self-perception. Becker theorizes that this change is what triggers a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the individual responds by living up to their label of a deviant and continuing their criminal behavior. Alternatively, John Braithwaite in 1989 disagreed with Becker's statement that labeling could only be bad, and in response, he identified a positive consequence of labeling. He saw it as being integral to the process of reformation. Braithwaite developed the theory of reintegrative shaming, where only the criminal act is labeled but not the person who did it. Braithwaite's theory advocates for avoiding the stigmatization of the individual and instead focuses on making them aware of the negative impact of their offense and encourages reacceptance of society's values. This discouraged the individual from continuing their criminal and deviant behavior, thus lowering the chances of recidivism. Edwin Sutherland in 1939 posed a different view, theorizing that deviance is encouraged not by labeling, but by the individual's environment. He claims that being exposed to deviant behavior will cause the deviant behavior to be viewed in a favorable light. For example, a person who has been previously involved in a crime will have a difficult time adapting to a more socially approved lifestyle and may seek out interaction with others who they feel will understand them. These interactions, as Sutherland states, will inevitably affect the individual's way of thinking and, by extension, their behavior. Finally, Travis Hershey's 1969 social learning theory offers a different explanation for deviance. He said that deviance is done by those who have failed to adapt to develop strong bonds with conventional persons and institutions. The fragility or non-existence of these bonds results in individuals with having no authority to answer to in their lives, which could lead to engagement in reckless, deviant behaviors. With respect to recidivism, Hershey states that after being convicted of a crime, an individual might lose all of their connections with family members, peers, businesses, and institutions such as schools and churches, due to them not wanting to be associated with a criminal. This isolation causes the individual to now embrace a new sense of independence and freedom from the expectations of others. They no longer feel any desire to fit into a normal society because they see themselves as having no ties to it. The most appropriate research method for conducting this study is the phenomenological qualitative approach. This will allow for the study to observe the lived experiences and perspectives of previously incarcerated persons through a subjective and unbiased lens. Through the use of interviews and focus groups, these individuals will have the chance to discuss their experiences both with the researcher and amongst a small, controlled group of other previously incarcerated individuals. These focus groups will assist in comparative discussion and analysis, whereas the interviews will examine the participants on an individual scale. Both methods will allow for a more personalized and intimate structure to collect data and encourage participant involvement due to high accessibility. The primary limitations of these research methods are the inability to guarantee participant integrity while answering questions. As the nature of the interviews and focus groups will be wholly subjective, there is no way to ensure an unbiased recollection of the events that took place. Additionally, interviewer bias may also present an issue while analyzing the data that was collected, as despite an awareness of the underlying issues at hand, societal conditioning still allows for unconscious stereotyping of certain individuals. Lastly, the task of properly conducting the necessary interviews and focus groups will be a time-consuming venture, as each individual participant will need to be given the appropriate time to share their story and receive appropriate amounts of consideration from the researcher. The schedule for the completion of this research will span a 4-year period. Howlett and Beck, 2004, described the five phases to the research process as being: firstly, the conceptual phase, the design and planning phase, the empirical phase, the analytical phase, and the dissemination phase. Concluding the completion of the conceptual phase, I aim to move on to design and planning. Over a 6-month period, this will include the selection of the population sample, as well as the formulation of a structure for the interview and focus groups. Following this, the empirical phase will commence. This will involve the collection of data and the preparation for data analysis. This phase will be conducted over the course of 2 years to ensure an appropriate amount of time is spent with each participant and to allow for the tracking of any growth and development that might take place. Over the course of 1 year and 6 months, the analytical phase will take place. This will involve the structuring and interpreting of the data to gain a better understanding of what it represents. This will include bringing together all aspects of the research in a logical, coherent, and purposeful manner. The write-up of the research will take place during this phase. Finally, the dissemination phase will conclude the research process by submitting the study for evaluation. This concludes my research proposal presentation. Thank you for your time.